Oni and a Human, written and illustrated by Whitney Ewing. I dedicate this book to my best friend Cheyenne, whose friendship has strengthened my mind and heart. A long time ago, in a place called Japan, there lived the Onis and the villagers. Now, Onis were half human and half demon, creatures that frightened and confused the villagers. The villagers even banned the Onis from their village and forced them to live in the dark forest of Ori near Sumi Mountain. But it was cold and creepy in the forest. It was full of giant trees and strange plants. The Onis hated it. They wished to be somewhere beautiful and full of sunshine. They wanted to play and have fun, but the villagers forbid it. Soon the Onis grew angry and began to dislike the villagers, except for one. An Oni named Dumpling believed the villagers and the Onis could live together and become friends. He was determined to prove it, and he was going to go into the village. The gates were wide open. He could sneak in right now. Dumpling crawled out from the cherry blossom bush he was hiding in and began to head towards the path. His silver hair tied in a ponytail bounced against his back as he began running quickly to the open gates. He had never gotten this close before. "Almost there," he whispered as he slowed down. Tiptoe, tiptoe. The wooden doors were getting closer. Dumpling smiled widely and shouted, "I made it!" But by yelling so close to the village, it grew quiet. Sounds of laughter and commotion stopped, and suddenly screaming. Children rushed to find their mothers while the men shouted and gathered the pitchforks. Dumpling froze in complete surprise as the men came out of the village and spotted him. "It's that dog-human creature!" Dumpling gulped as he spun around and started running back to the forest with the male villagers chasing after him. "This isn't good," Dumpling shouted. A few days later, Dumpling was once again standing behind the same tree. He wrinkled his wet and tiny nose as his little paws held onto the tree. Watching a group of village kids playing ball, Dumpling thought it looked really fun. "Oh man, I wish I could play," he whined quietly. Suddenly, a boy with black hair ran at the ball, yelling loudly, "Kick, swoosh!" Dumpling tilted his head back as he watched the ball sail into the sky, but he noticed it heading right towards him till, with a thud, the blue ball hit the grass beside him. Dumpling looked at the ball, then back at the group of kids until the same kid yelled, "I'll get it, guys!" Dumpling froze just as the kid came jogging towards him, but once the kid spotted him, he stopped. Dumpling stared at the kid, and the kid stared and stared and stared back. Looking over at the ball by his side, Dumpling slowly bent over to grab the ball and stood up. "Here." His paws held out for the ball for the boy. But the boy started screaming and pointing. It's a monster!" Dumpling rushed back. "Please, please, don't yell, please." The boy jumped back. "Stay away from me." Dumpling dropped the ball and put both of his paws against the kid's mouth. "Please, be quiet, please." The kid's eyes looked frightened, and he continued making noise. "Shh," Dumpling whispered. Finally, the boy grew quiet, and Dumpling dropped his paws from the boy's mouth. The boy stared at Dumpling, and Dumpling stared back. "I have something to tell you." Later that night, the Onis shivered and their stomachs rumbled. They all stood beside the tall trees for shelter from the wind until glowing lights lit the dark forest. The Onis looked around to find the villagers gathering around and holding candles. The Onis were shocked to even find the villagers here, but expected an attack, until they spotted Dumpling within the crowd of villagers. They knew that the unusual Oni had something to do with this. Then the leader of the village stepped forward with a smile and arms wide. "We have come to tell all of you Onis that we welcome you to come and live with us." Dumpling smiled at the Onis as the Onis looked at each other and accepted the villagers' invitation. The villagers were being honest and nice. It wasn't a trick. Shouts of happy cheers filled the forest as the villagers and Onis walked hand and paw back to their village. Dumpling looked at the boy, and the boy smiled before grabbing Dumpling's paw. "Come on, let's go home." Dumpling giggled and nodded, and from that day on, the Onis and villagers lived in peace and happiness together.